Welcome. It's Terri Levine here at Heartrepreneur Radio, Heartrepreneur TV. Delighted that you have tuned in and really reminding you, do business with transparency, with integrity, and with authenticity. It's so much more fun. You get to be yourself and you get to really make a difference for your own client, family members, your customers, your patients, whatever business or industry you're in. It makes all the difference. The Heartrepreneur philosophy creates more wealth, more health, and better relationships. And that's been proven by over 6,000 of our client family members. So I'm glad that you've tuned in today. And you know what? Today I actually have a really special guest. And let me tell you why. Many of our listeners and our viewers ask about podcasting. They're watching podcasts, listening to podcasts, and they're getting really curious about, can a podcast help me in my business? And typically, we haven't talked about this. So I found an expert for you, and you're going to love this episode. Carrie Caulfield Arick is the founder of YaYa Podcasting. And what she does is she helps content creators use podcasting to build influence, awareness, and authority. And it's through full service audio production training, which by the way is essential, as well as coaching. And we're going to talk today with Carrie. She's also the host of Just Podcasting, which is a seasonal show that explores podcasting life and culture, and it's fun to be a podcaster. Carrie is also co-founder of the female podcast producers and editors community, which is called Just Busters, love the name, which helps empower professional women in new media through networking, mentorship, advocacy, and monthly trainings. Carrie is the real deal. Welcome here today, Carrie, to Heartrepreneur Radio and TV.
Thank you, Terri. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Well, I'm really excited to have you because I know so many people who are talking about, should I get into podcasting? And if I do, I don't know how to do it. And I'm nervous about being on audio and on video. And should I do audio? Should I? And there's all these questions out there. So first, let me ask you, how did you get into podcasting?
So my story is maybe a little bit unconventional. I had a favorite podcasting. It was a scrapbooking podcast. And they retired. So a girlfriend said, well, Carrie, you should do that. You should pick up the torch. And I said, all right.
Wow.
And little did I know that this would end up becoming my career. That show ran for about a year and a half. I did everything. I did do everything myself. And that's how I learned so well, because I made so many mistakes.
Yes, been there.
Yes. And the show ended up being quite successful, but the problem I had was that I was so busy doing everything for it that I couldn't enjoy the success. And I was on this hamster wheel I couldn't get off. So when I retired from doing the show, I took a little break from everything for a little while. And when I was ready to return to working life, I just was called to help alleviate that frustration that I had podcasting for other people.
I think that's great because I really do believe, well, first of all, for me, I've been podcasting since like the advent of podcasting. I've had a lot of different shows. And for me, it's just fun. It's a great way to create a lot of content. I get so caught up in it that I'm just constantly doing it for myself, like sitting here with you. I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn from Carrie. I'm going to meet someone new. I'm going to get some more advice and expertise. And I find that the more that I am really focused on what can I learn, how can I learn, who can I learn from, coincidentally, at the same time, I'm building my own, the words you use, influence, awareness, and authority. I think they're brilliant. So I'd love to see more entrepreneurs get into this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. But the one thing that entrepreneurs should know before starting a podcast is it's a long game. You have to hang in there and stick with it. It's not going to pay off at episode 1. It's going to pay off, maybe I think after the first year is when most podcasters really blossom. It's that thing, make 100 bad videos you know.
Yeah, I know.
Before you get into your groove, before, you know, it just takes time.
It does. It takes time and it takes practice. My first podcast so many years ago, it was called The Sounds of Coaching, and I interviewed coaches in the industry. And I really didn't know how to interview, you know, so it ended up where somebody would talk and talk and talk, and I wouldn't really be asking valuable questions. So I think it's really essential that people do get training. And at YaYa Podcasting, you say that you do full service training. Tell me a little bit about that. That sounds incredible to me.
So we can walk you through anything you need to know about podcasting, including how to be a better interviewer, right? And my big tip for that is act like you have invited somebody into your home for a dinner party and be a host, right? You need to steer that for your guests. And I think that's essential. We also train on marketing, which is a big piece that podcasters struggle with. And we can help you get the right gear for your budget, for your recording environment. We can even teach you how to do something like edit your podcast yourself, if that's how you want to go, essentially. And we can provide show notes. We can teach you how to write show notes. So all the things that would be involved in this big production, because it is a production, we can help you with.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm glad to know that you're out there and you're doing this, because constantly, whether it's in a Facebook group or whether it's one of my own client family members, people are asking me, well, how do I do a podcast? And I'm like, well, I don't actually teach that. So I'm glad to have you. How can people find YaYa Podcasting, Carrie?
You can just go to yayapodcasting.com. That's the easiest way. It's right there. Yeah.
Excellent. YaYaPodcasting.com. And, you know, I also really believe if someone doesn't have a podcast and they haven't been thinking about it, it's definitely worth exploring. I can tell you, in the years I've been doing podcasting, and now we've turned it into a television show as well, I not only have met some of the most amazing people, I've actually established long-term relationships, which not only have grown my own business, which, you know, is a byproduct of it. Truly, I have learned so much from so many experts. So I love to reach out and to find experts like Carrie and to say, okay, come teach me. And through teaching me in this conversation in our living room, we're going to also help other entrepreneurs. Do you agree with that?
I agree. Podcasting is the ultimate form of networking for sure. I have met so many incredible people because we get to sit down like this and have just a one-on-one conversation in a way that we would not have, you know, traditionally if we were at a conference or we had a coffee date. This is, you know, very driven and guided. So this is, I mean, absolutely.
I like the analogy to the dinner party because it really is an easy, natural, effortless conversation. I never show up, as you know, with any questions. I find people that I think are very interesting and that I know our audience would love to hear from. And then I just engage in questions and conversation that come natural and certainly allow the listening and the viewing audience to then find a way to reach out. So in Carrie's case, it's yayapodcasting.com. But I also want to talk about just podcasting. So tell me about this. This one really intrigues me.
So really just podcasting explores what it's like to be a podcaster, what their experience is like. The first season, at least, is about what the experience was like launching a podcast. So if you want to know what is involved in creating a podcast, then that would be the podcast to listen to, because we talk about the energy it takes. We talk about the money it takes, the cost, the investments that people have made. And my guests have done it from like nothing to like thousands of dollars in investment. And we talk about how it affects their family and their relationships. And, you know, we just get into all the behind the scenes, like what is life as a podcaster like, but also what is that reward? And every single one of my guests said, regardless of anything, the reward was the transformative journey they went through as a podcaster, which I think is absolutely fabulous.
I agree with you. I think I've grown so much over the years podcasting. And in the very beginning, just being transparent, I have never shared this, Carrie. I didn't really enjoy it. I was kind of forcing myself and, I have to think of questions. And it felt like a lot of work because I didn't have any training, which was a mistake. It really was. And then as I had training and I got into it, I look forward, all my podcasts and all my radio TV is done on Monday mornings. And I look forward to Mondays. I wake up on Monday, I'm like, oh, I'm going to meet an exciting guest today. I'm going to have so much fun. And it's a joyful process now. I love to find really intriguing people like you and then share their information, knowing I'm also helping my audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I, for one, feel like I'm a different person than I was when I started back in 2014. And actually, podcasting has helped me in my personal life as well. Just being in this host position and having to use my voice and, driving a conversation, I was able to advocate for my autistic son in a way I hadn't before. Wow. So, yeah, podcasting gave me the ability to speak up when it was really important. And, that I just owe everything to it.
And I think that's a really key thing that you just said. Sometimes people look at some activity as it's pure business, it's lead generation, it's networking, whatever. And in my experience, everything that we do has an aspect of changing our lives and being transformational in our lives. I know when I first started doing video, they were awful. I mean, I was just a mess. And as I got more experience with video, I'm so confident on video now. Don't even think about it. I just turn on the camera and boom. And I also realize in my personal life, I am the same way. I used to sit back and think, well, what do I have to say that's important? I'll let other people talk. And now I express my ideas, my opinions. I have a way of communicating that I feel is more natural, more authentic. And that came from doing a lot of videos.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the same with audio. And actually, I'm way more comfortable doing video now since I started podcasting, just because I'm used to being in front of people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a natural kind of parallel. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Anyway, absolutely. Yeah. So I definitely, like, if you're looking for a self-confidence building exercise, then make a podcast. Because yeah, that even if it's, you do not have to make a podcast forever. Right. Like, you can put a start and stop date on it, which is what a lot of people forget, and you don't have to do the same show for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Do what feels good, but as the more you do it, the better you'll get, the more confident you'll get, and the more you will connect with people in this new, pretty amazing way. So I mean, just the people I've met doing this has been incredible. I've had some like fangirl moments where where I've met people that I think, are super famous, and they're just, and then they tell me the same thing, that they're like, oh, well, I was first nervous doing this, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So it also breaks down those barriers.
It really does. It really does. And I love what you said about you don't have to do the same podcast forever. That's a really key point for listeners and viewers. I started with the Sounds of Coaching. I think I did that show for about a year. And then I moved on and I did a business mentoring show. And I don't know, for the last 2 years, maybe more, I've just done Heartrepreneur. That just feels right for me. And it doesn't mean that's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. So it allows you, podcasting allows you to grow and to flex and to go in other directions and to diversify in your business. So Carrie has YaYa Podcasting. She also has Just Podcasting. Carrie, you have more than that, right? Wow, you're a busy lady. You co-founded, you're co-founder of the Female Podcast Producers and Editors Community with another great name. We go from Just Podcasting to Just Busters. So let's talk about Just Busters. You have so many different exciting areas. And I want people to get that. you can also do what Carrie is doing. You can dance many different directions that you're aligned in. So tell us about Just Busters.
So Just Busters was really developed because some girlfriends and I, who are in the podcast production business, struggle sometimes with being in co-ed communities where if you ask a very technical question, you may not necessarily get a polite answer, and you may not necessarily get any answer that makes any sense to you. And we also realize that there's a deficit in women's language and audio and their education in audio. And we wanted to do something about that. So that's how Just Busters was born. And what we really try to do is bridge that gap between, what podcasters who are either editing for themselves or want to get into editing for others and producing for others. We want to bridge that gap and get them to the level where these things do make sense to them, where they can talk about these very technical things and then solve really technical problems and own their knowledge, really. And because women also aren't very confident. And I'm not saying all women, I'm just saying in general, what we have found is that women do not own their authority the same way that men do. And that's the other thing, is we also advocate that podcast editors, anybody editing a podcast, take out those qualifiers women use, like the word just. So I'm not just a podcast producer or podcast editor. I am a podcast producer and podcast editor. And so, that's the other piece to that, is we really want women to own their authority and bring awareness to that problem in the community and to podcasters.
I'm glad you said that. I was talking to somebody just this past week that I met, and I said, "What do you do?" And the words that she said back to me were fascinating. She said, "I'm just a swimsuit designer." And I went, "No, you're a swimsuit designer. Like, I can't design a swimsuit. I think that's fantastic." And I said, that the words that you use showed me that you're lacking confidence. How's your business going? And she said, "Well, it's been growing over the years and very slowly." I said, "Well, it would, because if I wanted to buy a swimsuit from someone who said, 'Well, I'm just a swimsuit designer,' I wouldn't think you did great swimsuits." And I think that like rocked her world. So I do think that there's a lot of education that, generally speaking, women can use in the area of podcasting, can use with our language. And I think it's great that women can have a community like Just Busters.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, we really try to make it valuable to the members. So if you are a member, we host monthly webinars and we do meetups at conferences as well, which is a blast. But we are very supported too by the greater podcasting community, which, if you haven't been around a podcasting community, for the most part, they are so just loving and everybody's rooting for you. So we've gotten a lot of support on our mission, which is great.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. So how can people find Just Podcasting, and how can people find Just Busters?
So that's also on my website, just up in the menu. But for Just Busters, you can go to Facebook/group/JustBusters and request to join. And for Just Podcasting, it's available on any app, or you can go to justpodcasting.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then, of course, YaYa Podcasting. So what advice might you have for people who have a podcast currently? I'm going to ask you two questions around this. One, maybe they don't have a lot of people listening. And two, they want to monetize. So both of those questions are important if you can handle both.
Oh, those are good questions too. So if you want to build your audience, the first thing I would look at is, what are you doing to build your audience? Are you waiting for them to come to you, or are you seeking people out? Are you engaging specifically in the community that is your audience? Are you putting yourself out there? Can I click on your Facebook profile and see that you're a podcaster? because that's a big step most people miss. And the same, like, can I click on your Twitter profile and see that you have a podcast and have a link to that podcast? So those are the biggest things that I see podcasters not doing. You can't build it and they will come. Right. You have to get out there and engage people. And you don't have to spend a ton of time. Just take an hour a day, get out into your community, talk about your podcast in a natural way. So if you have a podcast that addresses a particular question that somebody in your community has asked, let them know. But don't just spam people with your podcast link. Don't do that. As far as monetizing goes, there are so many ways to do it. But again, I would use the community that you're in, the niche that you're in, and find businesses who would serve your audience, essentially. So, and make relationships with those businesses. Find out who the decision makers are on LinkedIn, for instance, and then put together a media kit about your podcast. Let them know that you have, X amount of social media followers, X amount of downloads per episode, and also let them know about the benefits of advertising on a podcast, because those give businesses direct access to their target demographic, and podcasting converts into sales. It absolutely does. I think I just read a study. I can't remember from where exactly, but it's something like you get like 30% sales, 30% more sales than radio and TV on a podcast. Wow. So, and it's a long-term thing, right? Because that content is on demand forever. So, and it's not necessarily something that's, people will just Google while they're listening and purchase a product. Yeah. So, yeah. So, I agree. Yeah. So that would be my recommendation for monetization. And I think it's something most people miss, right?
I'm fascinated by, and glad that you mentioned, put it in your Twitter profile, your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook. I talk to people all the time who I find out have podcasts that I had no idea they had a podcast. It's not on their website. It's not in their social media profiles. I'm like, well, how does anybody listen to your podcast if nobody knows about it? Right. And the other thing that you said that's absolutely brilliant is I always find podcasts monetized. My podcasts have monetized, and I haven't been super intentional, like, oh my gosh, I have to monetize. However, I've had people advertise. I've had businesses come to me and say, how many downloads do you have? And we have all that information. So you can also monetize. Yes, it's great for lead generation. I've done ads on other people's podcasts, and those have monetized. So there's a lot of ways to monetize, whether you're being interviewed or it's your own podcast. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I want people to give thought to that. Podcasting is fun. Podcasting creates content. Podcasting gets you connected with people. So I want to give people an example. Years and years ago, before we had podcasts, I started by doing, this is how I started my whole business. I did teleconferences and interviews with famous authors, coaches, and consultants. And I didn't know anybody at the time. I literally just contacted people and said, I'd like to interview you. Now, I maybe had, in the very beginning, 20 people listening. My name got associated with people like Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Joe Vitale. And all of the sudden, I went from having literally an audience of 40 people to over 57,000, just like that, because I connected with named people. So a little tip is a thing that you can do when you're podcasting is you can also ask to interview people that have bigger name, bigger following, bigger notoriety than you have, and you get connected. And by the way, don't be afraid to ask. There are so many people that say yes. Can you speak to that, Carrie?
Oh, I was just going to say the same thing. Like the worst they can say is no. People, right? But you would be surprised at how many people do say yes. I mean, I have had the privilege of working on podcasts. I have interviewed some like really big names, and it's, for me as an editor and producer, it's kind of nerve-wracking because, oh my gosh. But and these aren't podcasts that have necessarily huge listenerships, but people are so willing to talk about their experience, what they're doing. They're so excited about being able to share with your community. So I would definitely say all you have to do is ask.
Really?
That's it. That's it. And if they say no now, it might be that they say yes later. So
Well,
always leave the door open.
you give that door, but I have someone coming up in an episode in a couple of months who I went to about a year ago that I just knew could add value. And he said, oh, not right now, not at this time. I didn't take it as a no. I went back to him and we said, we don't have anything for 6 months, but I'd love to have you. And he said, yeah, that's good time for me. And I'm very excited to have him. He's going to also serve the audience well. So today, Carrie Caulfield Arick has been my guest. She's been amazing, opened my mind, and I'm so glad you said yes to be here at Heartrepreneur Radio and TV. Go to YaYaPodcasting.com. Check out Just Podcasting, Just Busters. And I strongly suggest, if you've never even thought about podcasting, reach out to Carrie. It may be something that would be super helpful in your business, and maybe you just haven't seen that yet. Carrie, thank you so much for being a guest here on Heartrepreneur Radio and TV.
Thank you so much, Terri, for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been a blast. And for the listeners, for the viewers, a couple of quick things before we depart. Well, first of all, again, YaYaPodcasting.com. I really want you to take in what you've heard in this episode. There's been so many nuggets, and I feel very aligned with what Carrie is doing and how she is helping you grow your business through podcasting and also grow your confidence and self-esteem, which we all need to create more wealth. The other thing I want you to do is go over to Facebook and join our group, Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine. Why? Number one, go right into the downloads and section. We have so many tools and tips there for you, all free, to be a member of a community of like-minded business owners. Second, Carrie hopefully will join us there too. She can also put in some great resources for you. And third, if you're really wanting to transform your business and transform your life, I can tell you that over 6,000 people just like you have done it by learning to do business more authentically, more in a way that comes from your heart and comes from the actual results that you can generate for people through your products and through your services. So take this interview to heart. Go back and really think about how freely Carrie gave tips and resources and tools and help, and how if you learn to do that through podcasting and through other ways, you can have all the qualified leads and all the income you desire and you deserve. So I want to thank Carrie again, and I want to thank you, our amazing audience, for tuning in and being here today as part of Heartrepreneur Radio and Heartrepreneur TV. See you next time. Bye now.